The economy is entering a critical period. Growth has lost momentum in recent quarters. Price pressures remain high for many Filipino households, and volatility is hitting trade, investment, and the peso. At the same time, corruption controversies and questions of governance have weighed on business sentiment, adding new uncertainty to an already complex economic landscape. This hour, we take a clearer look at the Philippine current economic environment, the weaknesses, how exposed, and the opportunities still emerging, and the reforms needed to put the country on a more resilient path. And joining us via Zoom is Alex Escucha, chairman of the UP Visayas Foundation and fellow of the Foundation for Economic Freedom. Welcome to Business 360, Alex. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Robert.
Now, Alex, based on the indicators and trends you monitor, what's the real state of the Philippine economy right now?
Well, I'm somewhere in between the pessimists and the very positive government statements. Point number one, the economy is still growing, but the third quarter report of 4% is almost as bad as the 97 crisis and the average of the pandemic years. That said, it is the most important component there is, of course, the slowdown in the infrastructure spending, which was expected because, as I said 2.5 weeks ago, the DPWH is practically at a standstill because nobody was signing papers and clearances. And even the DBM has tightened, according to the DBM high officials, they have tightened their own releases of the SAROS and the NCA, or Notice of Cash Allocations. And that will persist for the next 2 to 3 quarters.
Wow. Now,
however, the real source of the slowdown, Robert, is the slowdown in the growth of personal consumption. If you notice in the last 30 years, two things to point out there. On the demand side, consumption is 70% of the economy. So if the economy is growing by 6 to 6.5%, 4.9% of that is just personal consumption alone. So any slowdown there will really be almost 3/4 of the growth number. But hopefully that is not really, because the underlying sources of consumption still remains. The OFW remittances, the BPOs.
Yes. Now, Alex, you mentioned a slowdown in consumption. Now, with inflation biting and the peso unstable, now how heavy is the pressure now on Filipino households and businesses at this moment?
Allow me to challenge the predicate of that question. Inflation is actually quite low. In fact, the numbers are such that the BSP, the central bank, is given enough space to cut another quarter point in the interest rates. No, but I'd like to connect 2 points. Why inflation rate has lowered, but the SWS survey says inflation, food inflation is still a major concern, the top 2 or top 3. That is because when food prices went up, it just stayed there. Even if food inflation is 0, it's still high at that level where it stopped. No, so that means it's an affordability issue for the poor people. I've been tracking not only the top headline inflation rate as reported by the PSA. The last portion of the report refers to the bottom 30% inflation. And 80% of the inflation for the bottom 30% is food and basic necessities. But surprisingly, in September, the food inflation for the bottom 30% was 0.
Now, Alex, looking at the BIR, it's now tightening collections, rolling out reforms, but they are right now under scrutiny itself. Now, What necessary push for revenue, or is this a drag on business confidence with what's happening right now?
That's a good question. Allow me to put my own takeaways on that. Number one, uh, it's still a surprise to me why the BIR head was replaced. I don't know the real reason, but just 2 weeks after he reported that the BIR collections were at a record high.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. On the other hand, the second point is that Secretary of Finance Dec Go is a private sector person, so he's very much in tune with
Mm-hmm.
the concerns of the businessmen, especially the MSMEs.
Mm-hmm.
So one of his first announcement during his first 2 weeks in office was to remove the letter of authority, which is like a Damocles sword dangling
Uh-huh.
over the small businessman. That is a very good. That is a very good development. I think, in
But
my
where do you
point.
see the disconnect with what's happening today?
Well, uh, if you in my interviews, I've always focused on the underlying
Mm-hmm.
structural trends and
Mm-hmm.
not on the current
Mm-hmm.
noises.
Yes.
No. In fact, if we may segue to the S&P report, you've seen the BMI report of
Mm-hmm.
Fitch, which has 5 lines of potential risks, and yet the Fitch report says the triple B rating is still retained,
Mm-hmm.
and their outlook is stable.
Mm-hmm. No,
Even the Standard and Poor's,
mm-hmm.
the rating is still retained.
Yes.
In fact, their outlook is stable. Is
Mm-hmm.
in fact positive.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now,
if if you're really incorporating all of these concerns and risk into your matrix of indicators, then and if the numbers say so, they should have already downgraded the outlook from positive to stable or even negative.
but as you
But they
see,
did not
yeah.
do that.
But do you see that data sometimes has a disconnect with what's happening on the ground? Now, moving forward, when we look at the flooding, flooding continues to cripple cities and commerce. Now, from an economic standpoint, how urgent is large-scale flood control investment, and how can that now happen with the looming issues surrounding that?
Well, I have two key points there. One is that large-scale flood control is not the solution apparently, because we spent over 1 trillion pesos from NEP to GAA in the previous budget years of 23, 24, and 25, and that represented 2.5 to 3% of GDP. But since at least half of that is wasted, that's the reason why I said in my previous interviews we were ramping up the infra to GDP ratio, but we were not getting we were spending the buck, but we were not getting the bang for it because it is wasted. No? So to me, uh, there are two key takeaways from me. For me, we need not be helpless. There are already best practice that is staring us in the face. Marikina is an excellent example. During Ondoy, it was very well flooded, but after that, they made BF Fernando, who was an engineer, started the whole trend
Okay.
that
Yes.
they did the flood control right. So,
Alex, and finally, even with the headwinds, where do you see the most promising growth sectors or emerging opportunity pockets today?
well, obviously, the on the demand side, we're still growing on the consumption side because the ability to spend is still coming from there. On the supply side, we're still very much a service
Mm-hmm.
industry. Our manufacturing exports are still concentrated, but I agree with former NEDA head Carl Chua that there are opportunities for growth. In fact, the good news is that remember after this brouhaha about us being slapped all of these tariffs, the end result was that a number of our electronics exports were exempted, and even a few of our agricultural products were also exempted from the tariffs.
Yeah,
So
not
it's
affected by
not
that.
really
Yes.
that everything was not that bad as the noise that we saw earlier.
And Alex, if policymakers asked you today for one bold, high impact step to accelerate growth, what would you push first and why?
Well, I would still go for accountability, and among my because the real message is that we the culprits are identified, they are jailed, the money is returned, and it doesn't happen again. So to me, if there's only one thing to do, enact the Freedom of Information Law and enact the two bills, Senate 1512 and HB 5699, to really empower the Independent People's Commission against corruption, to make it really permanent, like the Hong Kong Anti-Corruption Agency.
Alex, thank you for sharing us your insights and joining us this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert.